They erased me. Not just once. Not by accident. Not the kind of casual oversight you can laugh about later. No, this was deliberate. It started with a family photo taken at the reunion I had planned, paid for, and made possible. The one held at the lake house I'd rented in my late wife's memory. The one that brought 3 generations under one roof for the first time in years. I remember watching them all laugh on the dock, the children splashing, the adults sipping wine, and I stood at the edge, thinking, Ellen would have loved this. But when the photos were posted, first on Facebook, then Instagram, I wasn't in them. I looked. Scrolled. Refreshed. Searched for any frame where my face might have snuck in. Nothing. My daughter-in-law, Rachel, had taken over 100 pictures. I helped carry her lighting equipment. I charged her spare battery pack. She even asked me to hold a reflector during one of the big group shots. Still, in every photo posted, I was gone. Cleanly cropped out. Not a sleeve. Not a shadow. Not a hint that I'd even been there. At first, I thought maybe it was an accident. So I commented. Beautiful photos. Do you have any with me in them? She replied with a heart emoji. That was it. The next day, she posted a video compilation titled, Forever Grateful for This Family. Every smile. Every toast. Every grandchild's giggle. Music swelled, filters softened the edges, and the final frame was her, my son, and their 2 children standing in front of the lake, my lake, captioned. This is what family looks like. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table, under the humming yellow light, flipping through the old photo album Ellen and I had filled year by year. Each page smelled like our life, dusty leather, faint ink, and something softer I couldn't name. Her handwriting labeled every moment, David's first steps. Caitlin's school play. Camping trip, 1992, all of us together. I turned the pages slowly, memories flickering back with each photo. Faces younger, hearts simpler. Back when they still looked at me like I mattered. They wanted to erase me now. But I had a story they didn't know, and a camera roll full of truths they'd forgotten. So I started posting. Quietly. One old photo at a time. Scanned carefully. Uploaded deliberately. Each caption told a story, not loud or angry, but clear. Uncomfortable truths wrapped in nostalgia. I didn't tag them. I didn't need to. Because within 2 days, I saw Rachel viewing every story I posted. My son stopped texting altogether. My granddaughter, Emma, who used to send me dog videos every week, unfollowed me on Instagram. They were watching. And I hadn't even posted the worst photo yet, the one they thought I'd never kept. The one they prayed had disappeared with Ellen. That one would come last. Because I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Before they saw me as disposable, they saw me as dependable. When Ellen got sick, it was me who held her hand through every test result, every exhausted morning, every quiet cry in the kitchen she tried to hide. Rachel came by once a week with a salad from Whole Foods, claiming she just didn't know what else to do around illness. David, my son, he came less. Too busy with work, he said, or the kids had soccer. But I didn't mind. Not then. I wasn't keeping score. I only kept Ellen warm. Federal comfortable. We had a life together, she and I. A modest one. A house built on patched roofs and second-hand furniture. We didn't have vacations, but we had traditions. Sunday meatloaf. Monday crossword. Friday night cards. After she passed, I kept the schedule like she might walk in any moment and ask why the kettle hadn't boiled yet. And David, my only son, told me to stay strong. He hugged me at the funeral, a rushed, distracted hug, like he had somewhere else to be. I'll call you tomorrow, he said. He didn't. So I waited 3 days, then called him. "Hey, Dad, sorry, crazy week." That was his greeting. I understood. Or told myself I did. Rachel's voice chimed in the background. "Tell him about the reunion." David laughed, muffling the phone. When he came back on, he was all enthusiasm. "We're thinking of a family weekend at the lake. Could be nice. We'll need a bigger place. Hey, didn't you say Mom always wanted to rent one of those big cabins up north?" I remember the pause. He didn't offer. He just waited. So I said, "Yes, I can take care of it." And I did. $3,000 for the lake house. Another $500 for groceries. I even booked a photographer, until Rachel said, "Oh, don't be silly, I've got the new iPhone. I'll handle photos." They arrived like royalty, Rachel in a wide-brim hat and designer sunglasses, David trailing behind carrying a bag labeled, "Mom's Things, Do Not Touch." The kids were already asking for Wi-Fi before they made it through the door. But I smiled. I made pancakes. I restocked the snacks. I played Uno with my grandkids even when my joints ached from arthritis. I listened to stories about school, even though they barely made eye contact. When Rachel asked me to take group shots, "Here, Dad, press this and count to 3, okay?" I obeyed. I even crouched to get the right angle, never saying how badly my knee had flared up the night before. I wasn't in any photos, but I told myself it didn't matter. After all, I had the memories. Right? Then came the moment I should have seen coming. On the last night, Rachel raised a toast over dinner. "To family," she said, lifting her glass, "to the people who show up, who love unconditionally." Everyone cheered. I smiled through it. But I felt it. The sting of what she hadn't said. No one toasted me. No one said, "Thank you, Grandpa, for making this happen." Not even David. Later that night, after they all went to bed, I sat alone on the deck, watching the lake flicker under the moonlight. I sipped cold tea and listened to the distant sound of my granddaughter watching TikToks in the room below. I pulled out my phone and stared at my message inbox. No new messages. No one asking if I needed anything. No one even checking if I'd made it home okay after I drove to town earlier to get extra diapers. They hadn't erased me from just the photo. They'd erased me from their idea of family. And they didn't even notice. The next week, Rachel uploaded the album online. I was the one who had to click the link myself, no one sent it to me. I sat at my desktop computer, the one Ellen used to balance the checkbook on, and scrolled. Photo after photo. Smiling faces. Twinkling lights. "So grateful for this tribe," one caption said. The comment section was full of hearts and praise. "What a beautiful family. #blessed. Rachel, you're glowing. Is that your house?" She never corrected them. And in none of those images, not a single one, was I visible. Even in the group shot I knew I'd been in, my body had been cropped so cleanly that it was as if I'd never existed. That was the night I opened the closet in the hallway. The one Ellen had always called the memory closet. I hadn't touched it since the funeral. Dust layered the boxes like sediment, sealing years into silence. But I opened them. One by one. Our first photo together, at the county fair. David's 5th birthday, frosting on his nose. High school graduation, me holding the camera, Ellen cheering. And every holiday, every gathering, every chapter of life captured by film before filters, before curated albums, before Rachel and her spotless digital gallery. I spent 3 days scanning everything. Each photo I uploaded to a new folder on my desktop, family, before they forgot me. Not to spite them. Not yet. I simply wanted to remember the world where I had mattered, where I was still seen. I didn't know, back then, that these old photos would become a weapon. Or a mirror. Or both. But I was about to learn. It wasn't the cropping that hurt the most. It was what came next. A week after the photos went online, I got a call from my granddaughter Emma, 12 years old, full of light, full of questions. She asked if I could come to her school recital. I said yes. Of course, I said yes. She told me she'd ask her mom to save me a seat. The recital came and went. I wasn't invited. I saw it on Rachel's Instagram the next day, Emma on stage, hair in ribbons, smiling wide. The caption read, "So proud of our girl. Thanks to everyone who came out to support her." The comments were filled with heart emojis and praise. I sat there, scrolling, waiting for something that would acknowledge me. A mention. A tag. A comment from David, maybe, saying I'd been under the weather. A single photo showing me in the audience, even from afar. Nothing. I texted Emma, "You were amazing. I saw the photos." She replied, "Thanks, Grandpa. Wish you could have been there. Wish I could have been there. I wanted to be. I planned to be. But someone had made sure I wasn't." 2 days later, I found out how. I overheard Rachel at the pharmacy. She didn't know I was behind her in line. "I just don't want him around Emma too much," she was telling the cashier, casually, like she was picking out shampoo. "He's just, off lately. You know. Since Ellen died. Kind of depressing. Kids pick up on that energy." The cashier, caught off guard, nodded politely. Rachel continued. "We love him, of course. But it's better for Emma if we limit things. Protect her from all that heaviness. Plus, he's always bringing up the past." I left my items on the counter and walked out. The past? The past was the only thing they hadn't already taken from me. The next time I visited their house, because yes, I still brought them groceries on Fridays, I noticed something else. In the hallway that used to display family portraits, my photo had been removed. Not moved. Not rotated out. Gone. Where once I'd stood beside Ellen, smiling in a frame David gave me on his wedding day, now there was a canvas print of a watercolor skyline. Modern. Cold. I asked about it. Rachel shrugged. "We're redecorating." David didn't say a word. Later that afternoon, I offered to show Emma an old photo I had on my phone, one of her and her grandma in the garden, covered in tomato juice and giggles. Rachel stepped in. "Let's not overwhelm her with too much nostalgia, okay?" Nostalgia. That's what they called it now. Not memory. Not legacy. Nostalgia. As if I were a dusty trinket from an era best forgotten. On the drive home, I passed the billboard for the senior community Rachel kept sending me brochures about. Independent living, she'd called it. "Just something to consider, Dad. Wouldn't it be nice to have friends your own age around?" I remember gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. This wasn't about my comfort. It was about their convenience. The fewer photos I appeared in, the fewer memories Emma would associate with me. The less time I spent around her, the more easily they could rewrite who I had been. David, my son, had stopped calling me Dad in public. He referred to me as my father now. Formal. Distant. Like I was a character in a story he didn't enjoy telling. And when I accidentally saw Rachel's open laptop one afternoon, she'd stepped away, and I glanced, I saw something that turned the ache into something colder. An email thread. She was applying to speak at a parenting conference. Her bio read. "Raised in a loving home by strong, independent parents. Built our family from scratch with no safety nets." No safety nets. The words echoed. No mention of the 6 months they lived with me rent-free after David got laid off. No mention of the down payment I contributed for their first home. No mention of the countless bills I paid quietly, discreetly, with nothing but a handshake and a hug. They weren't just cropping me out of photos. They were cropping me out of history. Of Emma's history. Of the story she'd tell about where she came from, and who had helped build the foundation she stood on. I went home that evening and opened the closet again. Took out the album. The real one. The one with all the photos they'd forgotten. I found the Polaroid of David at 6, sitting on my shoulders during his first baseball game. The picture Ellen took of Rachel's baby shower, where I was the one assembling the crib while the women laughed over cupcakes. The old Christmas photo with Emma, where I wore the paper crown from her cracker and made her laugh so hard milk came out of her nose. I looked at those photos like a map. And I knew then. They had no idea what I still had. What I still remembered. What I could still reveal. They thought they were curating an image. But I had the negatives. I stopped opening their messages. Not out of spite, not yet, but because I didn't trust myself to read them without shaking. Can you help us pick up Emma from school, or, could you grab eggs when you come by, landed like an assignment, not an invitation. I wasn't a father anymore. I was a utility. I stopped going on Fridays. No one asked why. Not at first. I stayed home and walked the rooms of a house that had grown too quiet, too hollow. Ellen's slippers still sat under the edge of our bed, dusty but untouched. Her coat, the green one she wore in every winter photo, still hung in the hallway closet. I wore it once that week. Sat in her chair. Made tea just how she liked it. Cinnamon. 2 sugars. I placed it across from mine like we used to. Spoke aloud like she might answer. They don't see me anymore, Ellen. The walls didn't reply. That night I searched for myself online. It sounds strange, doesn't it? But I wanted to know, do I exist anywhere but here? I typed my name into Google. Nothing beyond public records. No acknowledgements. No mentions. Even David's professional profile made no reference to me. Grew up in Colorado. Self-made. I stared at those words for a long time. And then I closed the browser and sat in the dark. My days blurred. I woke up, made coffee, and returned to the old album like a prayer. I scanned more photos. Labeled them. Created folders, sacrifices they forgot. Memories they don't deserve. Proof I was here. Some nights I didn't eat. Not from bitterness, from emptiness. It was like mourning someone who hadn't died. I used to think grief was for the lost. But it turns out, grief is worse when you're the one forgotten. When they erase you before you're gone. My doctor called. Said I'd missed 2 appointments. Asked if I was alright. I said I was fine. He didn't believe me. But he didn't press. I didn't even notice the voicemail from David until 2 days later. Hey, Dad, just checking in. Haven't heard from you. Rachel was wondering if you could babysit Emma Thursday. Let us know. No, I miss you. No, are you okay? Just a schedule. A task. I didn't respond. That Thursday came and went. Emma didn't call. Neither did they. And that's when I understood something terrible, they were adjusting. To life without me. The kind of adjustment that starts with missing one visit, and turns into a new family rhythm. The kind where photos no longer feature you, and stories no longer mention your name. The silence was no longer accidental. It was systemic. I took a walk around the neighborhood one morning and found myself at the local park. There was a bench with my name on it, a gift Ellen and I had funded years ago for the town beautification project. A mother sat on it now, holding her toddler. She had no idea who I was. I didn't expect her to. But I sat down anyway, on a different bench. I watched the kids play. Listened to the wind through the trees. Tried to imagine Emma as a child again. Laughing. Free. Still mine. Then a strange thought entered: what if she forgets me entirely? What if, in 20 years, she only remembers filtered stories and curated photos, the kind Rachel posts, pristine and selective? What if the man who read her bedtime stories, who fixed her bike, who taught her how to skip rocks across the lake, becomes just a faint impression? The ache wasn't sharp. It was dull. Heavy. Like waterlogged wood. I went home. Pulled the final box from the closet. The one labeled, Ellen, private. Inside were things she'd kept. Birthday cards from David. Drawings from Emma. Letters. And one envelope with my name on it. Her handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, a single sheet of paper. My love. If you're reading this, you're probably lonely. Or angry. Or both. I've seen the way they look past you sometimes. It's not fair. It's not right. But you need to remember something. You matter. Not because they say so. But because you were there. Every day. Every moment. You built this family. And no one can erase what was real. Not even them. Love. Ellen, asterisk. I didn't cry. I just sat with it. Quietly. Fully. It was the first time I'd felt seen in weeks. And that's when something inside me settled. Not healed. Not yet. But steadied. They'd taken so much. My place in the family. My name from their stories. My presence from their photos. But they didn't know what I still had. They didn't know about Ellen's letter. They didn't know about the old negatives I'd kept hidden in the garage. They didn't know that the man they dismissed was not broken. He was grieving. And grief, when left alone too long, turns into something sharper. Not violent. Not loud. But precise. They'd forgotten me. But I had not forgotten who I was. And I was done waiting to be invited back in. It happened on a Wednesday. The light came in low through the kitchen window, same as always. Dust danced in the beam, gentle and unnoticed, until you really looked at it. That's how the moment arrived. Quiet. Small. But undeniable once it settled. I was drinking tea from Ellen's favorite mug, the one with the chipped rim and faded roses, when I glanced again at the photo album on the table. My scanner sat beside it, blinking patiently, waiting for more. And I thought. No more remembering. It's time they start doing some of that themselves. I reached for the drawer beneath the table. The one Ellen used to keep stamps in. Inside was an old USB drive. I plugged it in. Waited. There they were. All the photos I had scanned, labeled, organized. But not just photos. Each image now had its own story. Beneath the photo of David's 6th birthday party, I'd written. He cried when the cake tipped over. I stayed up all night making a new one from scratch. He told his friends his mom had made it. She never corrected him. We didn't mind. We were proud just to be part of his world. Under Rachel's baby shower picture. I built the crib the night before. Slept on the floor beside it for a week, just to be sure it didn't creak. She never knew. Next to Emma's garden picture with Ellen. She called us, her flower people. Picked tomatoes barefoot. Told me she wanted to grow up and be kind like grandma. I believed her. I stared at the screen for a long time. These weren't just memories. They were evidence. Proof of presence. Proof of love. Proof that I had mattered. And for the first time, I realized something important: they hadn't erased me to be cruel. They'd erased me because it made the story cleaner. Simpler. David the self-made man. Rachel the curator of perfect moments. Emma, raised by modern warmth, untethered from history. But real stories aren't clean. Real families are built on cracked hands and late-night sacrifices. On unpaid loans and unconditional forgiveness. On names whispered in prayer long after the room goes dark. I emailed the folder to myself. Backed it up on 2 separate cloud drives. And then I created a new account. Not in my name. But in Ellen's. Ellen remembers, it felt poetic. Like she was the one telling the stories now. Because maybe, in a way, she was. Maybe this was how she would speak again. I posted the first photo. David, age 4, asleep on my chest after falling from the swing set. Caption. He cried so hard. I held him until he stopped shaking. The next morning, he told his mom I'd scared the monsters away. He doesn't remember that now. But I do. I closed the laptop. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't send links. Didn't announce myself. But over the next week, I posted 10 more. Quiet drops in a still pond. And the ripples began. One morning, Emma texted me a question out of the blue. Grandpa, did you really build Mom and Dad's first crib? I replied. Yes. I also built the swing set, the sandbox, and the bookshelf where your dad hid candy from your grandma. No emojis. No jokes. Just a truth she'd never heard. She replied with a single word. Wow. Rachel didn't say anything, but I noticed she'd made her Instagram private. David called the next day. Voice tense. Casual in that way people are when they're trying not to show concern. Hey, Dad, you've been quiet lately. Everything okay? I looked at the photo on my desk. The one of him asleep on the couch after prom. Still in his tuxedo. Still with that smudge of lipstick on his collar he never noticed. I answered quietly. I'm fine, son. Just remembering things. He paused. Well. Rachel's been busy. So have I. But we've been meaning to talk about, that vacation house. Maybe next summer, you know. He was back to planning. Back to normal. But I wasn't. Because the quiet part of me had turned into something sharper. Not angry. Not dramatic. Just resolved. I didn't want revenge. I wanted presence. Not just to be in their lives. But to exist in their memory. To take up space. To be seen. They had tried to write a cleaner version of the past. But I still held the pen. That night, I uploaded a photo of Ellen in the garden, her hands dirty, her laugh caught mid-bloom. Caption. She used to say, even forgotten seeds grow again if you give them time. It got 50 likes in an hour. 5 new followers. A comment from someone I didn't recognize. This account feels like family. And that's when I realized something else. Maybe I didn't need them to see me anymore. Maybe others, strangers, even, could carry the truth forward. Maybe Ellen's voice could live beyond the edges of their curated albums. And mine could too. They erased me from the photo. So I took the camera. And now. They didn't control the story anymore. I never raised my voice. I never wrote an angry letter. I simply stopped offering what they never thanked me for. It started small. Quiet. Clean. I called the gardener, the one I paid monthly to keep David and Rachel's lawn investment worthy, and cancelled the service. Told him to bill me through the end of the month. They'll be taking over now, I said. Next came the streaming subscriptions, the ones I added to my own plan for the whole family, because they couldn't figure out how to install a smart TV. I removed their profiles. Quietly. Without announcement. Let them wonder why, continue watching, no longer remembered their shows. Then I stopped forwarding Rachel the digital coupons I clipped every Sunday, grocery discounts, school supplies, half-off oil changes. She never said thank you. So I stopped giving. Each action, small. But together? They noticed. Rachel texted first. Did the landscaper quit? I replied. No. I just stopped paying for him. She didn't respond. David called 2 days later. Hey, Dad. Netflix is acting weird. We got booted. Oh, I said calmly, I canceled the extra slots. You're welcome to open your own account. Long pause. Oh. Okay. That was it. He didn't ask why. He didn't dare. I began redirecting my time. Instead of picking up Emma after school twice a week, I started volunteering at the library. Helping kids with homework. Reading stories. I didn't tell them. I didn't need to. They reached out eventually. Rachel first, through a brittle text. Emma misses you. Could you come by this Friday? I waited a full day before replying. Can't. Helping some kids at the library. But give her my love. She replied, oh. Nothing more. Emma called me that night. Her voice softer than usual. Grandpa, Mom says you're mad. I smiled gently into the phone. No, sweetheart. I'm not mad. Then why don't you come over anymore? I hesitated. Sometimes, when people forget who you are, the best way to remind them is to be somewhere else for a while. She didn't understand completely. But she was quiet. Thoughtful. And then she said, I remember who you are. I felt my chest tighten. Thank you, Em. I posted another photo that night. A Polaroid of me teaching Emma to ride her bike, my hand steady on the back of the seat. Caption. She didn't fall that day. She flew. I still remember the sound of her laughter. More likes. More comments. Another message from a stranger. Whoever you are, your family is lucky. I hope they know that. The irony made me pause. Rachel, meanwhile, posted less and less. Her usual, family first Fridays, vanished. The lake house photos were taken down entirely, perhaps after enough people began to notice the absence of a certain person in them. David emailed me an invitation. Emma's class is doing a family presentation. She wants you there. I stared at it for a while. Then I replied. Tell her I'm proud of her. But I don't think your family wants me in their photos. Let me know if that's changed. No reply. That silence was part of the revenge too. Not loud. Not sharp. Just space where guilt could breathe. I wasn't punishing them. I was protecting myself from being used. And the thing is, once you stop offering yourself as a resource, people start to realize just how much they relied on you. Rachel began dropping hints in her posts. Hard week. Wish parenting came with a manual. Anyone know a good handyman? I scrolled past. David began calling more often. Leaving voicemails that wandered in tone. Sometimes cheerful. Sometimes almost panicked. Once, he said, I think we've all been a little. I don't know. Distracted. Maybe we need to sit down. Reconnect. But I didn't return the call. Not yet. Let the space grow wider. Let the silence teach. At night, I slept better. My house felt warmer somehow. Cleaner. Because the energy I used to spend on being overlooked was now being spent on being deliberate. I picked up photography again. Real photography. The kind Ellen loved, black and white portraits, candid slices of life. I took photos of the old bakery downtown, of neighbors gardening, of strangers laughing in parks. I started a new album. Titled it, people who still see me. I printed some out. Mailed a few to local contests. One of them won. Nothing big. Just a local prize, Best Slice of Life 2025. But they used it in the town paper. With my name. And a line below. Retired builder and community volunteer Roy Miller finds new purpose in preserving forgotten stories. Rachel saw it. She shared it to her story. No caption. But she tagged me. It was the first time my name had appeared on her page in over a year. And that? That was subtle revenge too. Not because it hurt them. But because it reminded them. Of the man they'd erased. And the man who didn't need their camera anymore to be seen. The first real crack came from David. Not through an apology. But through an accident. Emma had a school project, Family Legacy. Each student had to bring in something meaningful from an elder, a photo, an object, a story. She brought one of mine. A printed photo I'd taken decades ago, David, age 9, holding a hand-carved wooden airplane. His expression open, unguarded, proud. Emma explained the story to her class. My grandpa made this for my dad. He used to work with his hands, build things. My dad said he'd forgotten about it. Her teacher loved it. Shared it on the school's blog. Captioned it, "One child's memory connects 3 generations." Rachel emailed the teacher, asking for the post to be removed. Privacy concerns, she wrote. But it was too late. The photo spread. People in the community saw it. Shared it. Commented on how rare it was to see such genuine emotion in an image. Some even connected it to the photography contest I'd recently won. The thread was forming. And Rachel didn't like threads she didn't control. I got a message from David the next day. Can we talk? I didn't answer immediately. Waited a full 24 hours. Then replied, sure. Come by. Alone. He arrived that evening. No children. No wife. Just him, standing on my porch like he hadn't in years. He looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. Just, diminished somehow. Like the silence had pressed into him too. We sat at the kitchen table. The same table Ellen and I had shared coffee at every Sunday morning. The silence between us stretched long and tired. Finally, he spoke. I didn't realize how much you kept. I nodded slowly. Because you never asked. He looked down. Emma told me about the photos. About your account. She asked questions I couldn't answer. Questions I should have known the answers to. About you. About Mom. About our family. I said nothing. He continued. I let Rachel shape the story. I let her decide what family looked like. And I think I wanted that version, because it was easier than facing the parts one didn't contribute to. The parts you carried. That was the closest thing to an apology I was going to get. But it wasn't enough. I reached beneath the table and slid a folder toward him. Inside were 20 printed photos. Dates. Captions. Stories. Documentation of the invisible weight I'd carried. The crib I built. The debt I covered. The moments he'd forgotten, or rewritten. He opened the folder, slowly. Turned the pages. By the time he got to the last one, his hands were shaking. I didn't know you kept all this. You never asked, I repeated. He closed the folder. I can't undo what's already done. No, I said evenly. You can't. There was a long pause. But Emma can still know the truth. And that was the point. The consequences weren't loud. They weren't explosive. They were quiet. Steady. Slow. Rachel lost clients for her brand consultancy. Turns out, when people Googled her, they found connections to my account. To my photos. And some began to ask, why isn't the man who built the legacy ever mentioned? The parents at Emma's school asked the same. David found himself stumbling through explanations. Rachel stopped posting altogether. One night, Emma called. "Grandpa, can I come over this weekend?" "Just me?" I said yes. When she arrived, she handed me a drawing, crayon on printer paper. It was a sketch of me. Camera in hand. Emma on my shoulders. Above it, in shaky cursive, the one who never forgot. I pinned it to the fridge. The place of honor. And then the most surprising thing happened. Rachel called. Not a text. Not a message through David. A real call. "Thank you," she said, her voice thin, brittle. "For keeping the memories." I thought I was protecting Emma. But I think I was protecting myself from how much I owe you. I didn't respond. She didn't ask for forgiveness. And I didn't offer it. Consequences are not always about payback. Sometimes, they're about clarity. Emma now asks me questions constantly. About Ellen. About her dad as a boy. About what life was like before all the phones. I tell her everything. In detail. With names. With smells. With colors. Because she deserves the truth. Because she deserves to remember. And because I will not be erased again. Confrontation, they erased me from the photo. So I took the camera. The invitation came folded in thick white cardstock. Embossed, elegant, formal. Join us in celebrating Emma's 13th birthday, a garden party of gratitude and growth. Beneath it, in smaller print. Dress code, white linen. Professional photographer on site. Memories will be made. I read it twice. Set it on the table. Looked out the window to the garden Ellen once tended, the soil she turned by hand, the flowers she whispered to like old friends. The irony wasn't lost on me. They wanted photos again. But this time, I was being invited. Not asked to hold the camera. Not told to stand off to the side. Invited. I went. Not for Rachel. Not for David. For Emma. She greeted me at the gate herself. Barefoot, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Grandpa, you came." I hugged her, one arm around her shoulders, the other gripping the wrapped photo frame I brought as a gift. A single image inside, Ellen and Emma, side by side in the garden, both of them smiling at something just beyond the lens. It was the photo they never knew existed. The one I'd taken quietly, one summer evening, when the light was soft and golden and neither of them saw me watching. Emma took the gift with reverence, cradling it like it was alive. The party was everything I expected, coordinated, curated, and carefully framed. White tents. Balloons that matched the floral arrangements. A photographer snapping candid shots with precision so clinical it bordered on sterile. Rachel moved through the crowd like a hostess from a lifestyle magazine. David trailed behind, polite but distracted. They hadn't seen me yet. Until they did. Rachel's eyes landed on me as I stood near the refreshments table, a plate of fruit in hand. She froze for half a second. Then composed herself. Smiled. "Mr. Miller," she said, crossing the space between us with calculated grace, "I'm so glad you could make it." It wasn't sincere. But it wasn't hostile. Just controlled. "I'm not hard to find," I said evenly. She blinked. Laughed too brightly. "Well, Emma's been talking about you non-stop. She's worth talking about." Another beat of silence. David approached then. Hands in pockets. Eyes darting to Rachel, then to me. "Hey, Dad." David. We stood there, three people connected by history but separated by choice. "I see you've been," Busy, Rachel said softly, her voice dipped in something resembling caution. I've been documenting, I replied. Preserving. Things you didn't think needed to be remembered. Her smile wavered. I didn't mean to. But you did, I interrupted. You meant to curate. To craft a story. I just made sure the whole one stayed intact. David looked down. Emma reappeared at my side, holding the frame I'd given her. Grandpa, can I show this to my friends? Of course. She turned to her mother. Is it okay if we display it? Rachel hesitated. But only for a moment. Of course, sweetheart. Emma darted off. We watched her run, the frame clutched tightly in her hands. She'll remember what you tried to forget, I said quietly. Rachel's jaw tightened. David spoke first. We didn't realize how much space you held. You never asked. He nodded slowly. That won't happen again. I didn't nod back. I didn't offer comfort. Because this wasn't about mending. It wasn't about revenge. It was about boundaries. And this was mine. I'll stay today, I said. For Emma. David nodded again. Rachel opened her mouth, then closed it. Sometimes silence is the most honest reply. The photographer approached us minutes later. Family photo, he asked. David looked to me. So did Rachel. And I said, sure. We walked to the arranged spot beneath the arbor. Emma stood in the center. David to her right. Rachel to her left. I stood beside Emma. She reached for my hand. The shutter clicked. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel erased. My house is quiet again. But not hollow. There's a difference. The silence that used to echo with absence now hums with memory, full, lived in, real. Every photo on the mantel is one I chose. Every item in the room speaks of someone I loved, something I built, or something I salvaged. I no longer wait for their messages. And I no longer resent their silence. Because what I've learned is this: healing isn't something they give you. It's something you claim. Piece by piece. Like gathering photos from the dust. Emma visits on Saturdays now. Not every week. But often enough. She brings her sketchpad. Sits on the floor like she used to when she was little. She draws while I tell stories. Sometimes she draws the stories. One day she sketched Ellen in the garden, a memory she wasn't old enough to form, but one I described in such detail she said it felt like her own. I want to remember things that happened before me, she told me. Because they made me. She's 12. But she sees more than most adults. David comes too sometimes. He doesn't ask for money. Doesn't ask for favors. He just brings groceries or helps replace a light bulb. He never says it outright, but I can feel the quiet regret he carries. And I've stopped asking for an apology. Because he's not the same man who cropped me out. He's a man who realizes now that absence is a kind of inheritance too. Rachel is more distant. Polite, careful. But she sends photos of Emma now. Not filtered. Not curated. Just small moments, Emma reading a book, feeding birds, holding the framed photo of her and Ellen. They come without captions. And that, oddly, makes them more honest. The photography account, Ellen remembers, still exists. I still post there. Not every day. Not for vengeance. But because remembering is now my form of peace. And strangers still find it. They leave comments like, "You're helping me remember my own grandparents. This account reminds me what matters." It no longer surprises me that people I've never met can honor me more than the people who once shared my name. The healing came not in being seen again. But in realizing I never needed their permission to exist. One morning, I woke up before the sun. Made coffee. Sat in Ellen's chair. And for the first time in months, I didn't reach for the album. I didn't need it. Because the memories had moved from page to presence. From pain to peace. That afternoon, I planted something in the garden. Tomatoes, Ellen's favorite. Emma helped. Her fingers were covered in soil. Her shoes muddy. Her eyes bright. "Grandpa," she said, "can I have a camera like yours someday?" "Of course," I said, placing my hand gently over hers. "But promise me one thing." She looked up. "Never crop someone out unless they ask to be." She nodded. That evening, she took a photo of the tomato plant we just buried in the earth. The angle wasn't perfect. The light was crooked. But when she showed it to me, I saw something that made my chest ache in the best way. She'd kept my hands in the frame. Dirt under the nails. Wrinkles. Roots. And just the edge of my shoe, beside hers. Real. Whole. There. The photo sits on my nightstand now. Not framed. Just resting there, edges curling slightly from where Emma's fingers held it too tightly, too lovingly. It's the last one she took before summer ended. 2 hands in the soil. 1 pair small and clean. 1 pair old and worn. Both touching the same root. The caption she wrote in pencil on the back still stops me cold when I read it. He didn't need to be in the picture to hold everything together. I used to ache for proof that I had mattered. Now, I know, it was never the photo that proved anything. It was the fingerprints on the camera. And I was the one holding it all along.